Nigerian professionals in The Hague, Netherlands, interact with President Buhari.
Ministers directed to commence immediate evacuation of Nigerians stranded in Russia after the World Cup.
Federal government reiterates commitment to necessary infrastructure to optimize the benefits of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we will review Vice President Yemi Osinbajo's investment roadshow in the United States.
For 3 days, a team of Nigeria's investment managers, led by Vice President Yemi Osinbajo, were at the Silicon Valley in San Francisco and Hollywood in Los Angeles.
Now, their mission was to attract foreign investment into Nigeria's growing technology and innovation space, while also finding new frontiers to help boost knowledge in the sectors.
Now, the team had interactions with chief executives of big names in the global technology and creativity circles to get support to enhance Nigeria's foreign exchange earnings. Areas such as localizing content, its distribution, accessibility, and cost reduction were prominent in conversations between Vice President Osinbajo and his hosts while on the United States Investment Roadshow.
Now, it is expected that Nigeria's quest to becoming a data-driven digital economy as well as a global digital hub will hopefully come to fruition going forward.
On the Vice President's team were members of the recently inaugurated National Industrial Policy and Competitive Advisory Council, an important part of the National Industrial Policy and Competitiveness Advisory Council.
And prior to the U.S. visit, Vice President Yemi Osinbajo had embarked on a tour of several technology hubs in Nigeria. And the investment roadshow, of course, on the U.S. was generally targeted at further improving on Nigeria's ease of doing business reforms.
So what is the significance and expected gains of this visit to the United States of America? How far can the visit address emerging issues in the country's ICT and creativity sectors? That's our focus on Good Morning Nigeria today. Thank you for waking up with us, and we are reaching you via the Nigerian Television Authority, the Africa's largest TV network. My name is Kirian Umayo.
And I'm Kingsley Osadola. I also join my colleague Kirian in welcoming you to this edition of the program, in the course of which we have our regular complimentary segments, and these, of course, will include the ones you know very well: newspaper review, business, sports, foreign, and others. In the meantime, we join our other colleague, Anne Jibuno, for the highlights of the morning news. Hi, Anne. Good morning.
Hello, Kingsley and Kirian. Good morning, and welcome to the news. Nigerian professionals in the Netherlands have indicated their willingness to bring their expertise to bear more effectively on socio-economic advancement of the country. They stated this at an interactive session with President Muhammadu Buhari in The Hague, Republic of the Netherlands.
I congratulate you very much for your personal achievements that have brought you here. To be faced with qualitative people like you is what I'm looking forward to. And I'm very happy that you all have home in mind, and you are doing your best to make sure that you very well represent Nigeria, and Nigerians benefit from being in whatever position you find yourselves here.
President Buhari addressing Nigerian professionals in the Kingdom of the Netherlands. In the meantime, President Buhari has directed the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Geoffrey Onyema, and that of State for Aviation, Senator Hadi Sirika, to commence the process of repatriating Nigerians who traveled for the FIFA 2018 World Cup. A statement by the Special Assistant on Media and Publicity to the President, Garba Shehu, states that the Nigerians to be repatriated are those who got stranded after the World Cup in Russia. The Minister of Agriculture, Audu Ogbe, has assured the international community that President Muhammadu Buhari is genuinely committed to finding lasting solutions to the farmers and herders' clashes for sustainable economic development. He stated this while leading a high-powered delegation on a fact-finding visit to one of the world's agricultural research institutes, the Wageningen University and Research Center in the Netherlands.
In taking many people off the streets.
Something has to be done. We must have a policy that will encourage specifically a lot of the companies that are there in Nigeria to finance research on agric.
The idea that it's only Fulanis who keep cattle in Nigeria is not true. We're encouraging everybody to come in, and when you do return, it's people like you whom we hope we can organize to manage the ranches.
The coast now seems clear for Nigeria to sign the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, as majority stakeholders are in support for the country to do so. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo at the presidency's 8th Business Quarterly Forum meeting says the administration is committed to making sure that the necessary infrastructure is in place for the country to benefit optimally from the Continental Trade Agreement.
Supporting investors who themselves have shown commitment to being in this economy. To grow additional investments, we're also developing a systematic, data-driven approach towards engaging with international trade partners.
We are beginning together with the private sector to fill out the details of the modalities of how the framework agreement would be applied.
The federal government has assured Nigerians of the Buhari administration's commitment to ensuring that corruption does not deny them a bright future. In President Muhammadu Buhari's message to the National Assembly's Open Week Maiden Edition, the President says to guarantee this, corruption must be fought at all fronts, and there must be coordination between and among the three basic institutions, that's the legislature, judiciary and executive.
The Open Week ensures that the National Assembly is in tune with the mood of the nation.
That in modern democracy, all the three arms of government must function effectively for good governance.
Despite these efforts, a lot more can be done by the National Assembly to improve public confidence in the institution of the legislature and encourage public engagement.
The All Progressives Congress, APC, is now to adopt direct primaries in the conduct of its future elections as against the use of delegates. National chairman of the party, Comrade Adams Oshomole, disclosed this after a meeting of the party's National Working Committee at the National Secretariat in Abuja. 3 key issues were discussed by the National Working Committee, and they include the party's victory in the last Saturday Ekiti governorship election, preparations for the forthcoming Osun governorship election in September, and the condemnation of the recent killings in Sokoto State and other parts of the country.
We celebrate that under President Muhammadu Buhari's government, we now can see that elections can be conducted without people being hospitalized or even some finding their way to grave because they have been killed in the process.
Despite his recent statement of commitment to the All Progressives Congress APC, Benue State Governor Samuel Otom recapitulated, saying he is free to join a new political party of his choice. He says this follows a clash of interest between him and some forces within the APC in the state.
As for party, I think right now, as I talk to you, I've been given red card, so I am outside the pitch. So if I've been given red card, and I'm standing outside, I am free. But I'm waiting. If others feel that I'm important and they come to me.
Well, that's the news this morning. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Kirian and Kingsley after the break.
Unemployment, notably youth unemployment, features strongly in our party's manifesto. We intend to attack the problem frontally through revival of agriculture.
The 30K is going a long way. Actually, I bought an acre of land for 60K like 2012, and presently I have a cassava farm and a yam farm.
Reorganized, trained, and fully equipped. We are the new improved Nigeria Police Force. We fight crime. We bust syndicates. Whatever the crime, wherever the hideout, the Nigeria Police Force will get you busted. Stop kidnapping, armed robbery, murder, pipeline vandalism, and other criminal activities. Be productive. Be security conscious. Join the police force to secure your life and property. This message is from the Nigeria Police Force Public Relations Department.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the daring and invincible Louis the Mosquito. Responsible for 200 malaria cases all on its own. Is there anything that can kill Louis? Morphine! Presenting Morti's Power Guard. Its powerful formula kills malaria mosquitoes fast. So, get Morti's Power Guard.
Fake news which is shared for malicious purposes is a danger to our peace and security in Nigeria. Misinformation as fake news is a serious threat to our hard-earned democracy and promotes hatred and misunderstanding between our communities. We are all responsible for stopping the spread of fake news in its tracks. So, always check the source and credibility of any news item. Say no to fake news. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information.
You will not be burning your money again in paying NEPA bills. Thank you very much.
Many people feel they have a responsibility to be irresponsible to those we feel have given them reason to show them irresponsibility.
One day I wonder, give us the services, we will pay you after later. But the government has said, pay us, we will give you services after later.
When we check our duties to pay for services like lights, do we make it possible for ourselves to be in the light or to dwell in darkness?
How can they be asking for money when light is unstable?
Code Meter is another mind-blowing and funny episode of your rib-cracking comedy. Professor John Bull coming your way this week and laugh like never before.
Over and out. Brought to you by Glow, the largest data network. Glow Unlimited.
If you're just joining us, this is Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. Now, time for business. FAC to investigate 90 billion naira shortfall in remittance by the Federal Inland Revenue Service, FIRS. Details with Comfort Amodu.
Welcome. Now, Nigeria has confirmed participation at the Intra-African Trade Fair scheduled for December 2018. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo made the confirmation at the engagement session of Intra-African Trade Fair in Abuja. Represented by the Deputy Chief of Staff, Ade Ikpaye, underscored the urgency for Africa to improve on its trade to boost revenue and develop its infrastructure.
It's very critical in creating jobs, especially for the young African population, and it is too good an opportunity to be missed.
The existing infrastructure, according to the Afrexim Bank, though described as inadequate, supports Africa's trade put at more than $1 trillion annually. Also, Afrexim is rolling out a pan-African payment and settlement platform to tackle the challenge of Africa multiple currency, out of which only 3 are convertible.
Our target under the strategic plan we've embarked on is that by 2021, we will have given lines of credit to 500 African banks.
With the African Union determined, to improve this trade. In fact, it was the leaders themselves that organized this and said, look, we want Africa to trade with Africa.
Meanwhile, the Federation Accounts Committee, FAC, has resolved to go after all revenue-generating agencies to see that they remit accurate and exact accruals into the Federation account. Next to be targeted after the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation on the remittance has been addressed is the Federal Inland Revenue Service, FIRS. Addressing journalists on the resolve of the FAC to go after revenue-generating agencies, Chairman Finance Commissioners Forum, Mr. Moshood Yunusa, disclosed that they will go after FIRS to explain why there was a drop in what they remitted to the Federation account in May and June 2018.
You see, we are not taking NIPC just for the joy of engaging into disagreement with them. FIRS if they come, they will explain to us too. Why is it that you are having sharp drop? I can't really remember now offhand, but the drop was about in excess of about maybe 90 billion or so. So they need to tell us why this drop. Basically, what we are looking for is to strengthen, deepen the collection process in line with the law. That's all.
Recall that the FAC meeting for the month of June was cancelled thrice in a row. The commissioner maintains that it is not a political maneuver, but a quest for due process, which has seen states look inwards with a view to weaning themselves of dependence on the Federation account to survive. An Asset Management Corporation of Nigeria, AMCON, has commenced the seizure of assets following the inability of some companies and individuals to repay their debts. Due to over 1 billion naira indebtedness, AMCON has taken over Sigma Apartments. This followed a court order granted to AMCON to take possession of the property after a series of attempts to recover the loan failed.
We don't like to go and take over any business. We will still appreciate to sit down with people and then have a resolution, process. Let us have an agreement, within which, people can then respect and honor their obligations.
And lastly, let's see the closing figures of the stock exchange. Do stay tuned for more on Good Morning Nigeria. I'm Comfort Amudu. Many thanks.
Thank you very much, Comfort, for the business package. Next for us now is a review of the papers this morning.
Pleasure to welcome Bayo Toyebe, our regular newspaper reviewer. Bayo, good morning and welcome to today's edition.
Good morning, Kinsley.
Good morning to see you. That's right. Let's take a look at the front pages of the papers. From the Punch newspaper, the lead story from the Punch newspaper is one of disaster from Katsina. So 44 dead, 500 buildings destroyed in Katsina flood. 20 people missing. Buhari and Masari mourn. Details of the story can be found on page 17. But the photographs you see on the front page there are also from the scene of the flood disaster that took place in Jibia. That's in Katsina State. That's the home state of the president. That's the lead story for the Punch newspaper. Then above the nameplate of the paper, there are 3 other headlines we will take along with the earpieces. Federal government to shut 3rd Mainland Bridge from July 27th to 29th. That's on page 6. Ekiti TMG, TI, Serap condemned vote buying by parties. And with a rider, we received 35 cash for vote complaints. And that's according to the PSC. The PSC stands for the Police Service Commission. Details of that story can be found on page 7. Benue Governor Otom declares intention to dump APC. With a rider, ex-Governor Iyako and son joined ADC. Details of that story can be found on page 41. 2 earpieces there. PDP asks Buhari to report himself to ICC, page 17. Buhari orders repatriation of Nigerians stranded in Russia. That's on page 44. And below the photographs on the front pages again, on the front page again, we take the other headlines. Let's take 2 of them immediately below that. Inspector General of Police places 5 million naira bounty on killers of 11 policemen. That's page 41. Sergeants and others nabbed for kidnapping NPC worker. I don't believe foreigners are involved in Nigeria's killings. That's according to the French envoy. Details on page 10. And policemen used POS to extort 100,000 naira from contractor. And Taraba CP sustained injury in mob attack. Details on pages 4 and 5. Metering. Ask discos to recapitalize. Federal government tells Electricity Regulatory Commission. Page 21.
All right, that's a good deal of stories on the Punch newspaper this morning.
Quite busy.
Yes, and let's turn to the Nigerian Tribune. Below the nameplate of Nigerian Tribune, 44 dead, 20 missing, over 500 houses destroyed in Katsina flood. It's on page 34 of the newspaper. And I will laugh last, says Fayoshe. That's the outgoing governor of Ekiti State. Says Buhari, not a Democrat. The details on page 4. Then APC has given me red card, says Otom, the governor of Benue State. I am alone outside the pitch, he says. Details is on page 9. Now, the main headline on the Nigerian Tribune. How we were barred from flying to Benue. That's a Southern Middle Belt leaders with 4 kickers there. Or 4 riders, rather. Adebanjo Nwodo, Niger, Oduma Kane narrate how they were kept waiting for 5 hours, how weather, landing permit were used as excuses. No airline was denied landing or takeoff, says NAMA source. Page 2 has details of all that story. So then, as Makurdi Summit insists on restructuring, NEF, Afenifere Ohaneze, Pandev, MBF meet in Abuja Wednesday. Now, on the column on the left-hand side of the photograph from the New Tribune, Oshun 2018, Oshomole insists on direct primaries with the 2 riders. Southwest APC suspends Oshun chairman, secretary. And then the action is illegal, says Oyatomi, is on page 3. Now, youths attack and injure Taraba State Commissioner of Police. Page 35 has details of that story. Well, that's it for the New Tribune. Bayo.
Yes, sadly, flood has ravaged 7 communities in Jibia local government area of Katsina State. The officers of the National Emergency says that some of the persons have built their houses on flood paths, but newspapers are conflicting with their details. Some are reporting 38 dead and 200 houses demolished. Others say 44. The death toll is 44, and about 500 houses have been demolished. The rain actually started on Sunday at 11 p.m. and for 26 hours it continued and didn't stop until Monday 1 a.m. The rescue team from Katsina State Emergency have been in Jibia 21 bodies have been recovered and buried. 17 others are waiting for burial. 260 cows, sheep, and goats were also killed. 20 people are still missing. The governor, Aminu Bello Masari, has already visited Libya. Whenever there is disaster, animals often escape. In fact, in tsunamis, usually animals somehow instinctively run away from the lower ground and go and hide at the higher ground. And that is always an indication for human beings that something sinister is about to happen.
I like the word you used, instinctively. Because if you watch some of these animal kingdom documentaries, you discover that animals know when the weather is changing. Just like we have our own meteorological agency, or hydrological agency that predicts what's going to happen. This flood has been predicted. They've been predicted, and the Katsina is one of the states that said this will occur. But the point there is that when do we now know that it's going to occur, to be able to take a precautionary measures? That is the problem.
Yes, already there's been coastal floods in Ondo, and already NIMET has been on air to warn that the rains are going to be on the increase and many states are going to be flooded. Therefore, national emergency and state emergency services must all be on alert.
Yeah, Bayo, what you're talking about animals, usually also with regard to other natural disasters such as earthquakes, animals have a way of apprehending, looming disaster. It's referred to as animal omens, because their ears are closer to the ground, as it were, and then once there is some rumble in the crust of the earth, they pick this up, and birds take flight, and so on and so forth. But in the case of Katsina, it would appear to be mostly flash floods, and in other words, a sudden gush of water. And so the animals will have no opportunity of escaping. Bangladesh, which of course is largely submerged, beneath the sea level, has disasters involving animals whenever you have flooding. Flooding, not just tsunamis now, for the floodings that will occur, from time to time in the monsoon season, I believe. Yes.
The other story coming from Benue is Governor Samuel Utom, who has said that his party has given him the red card. He actually said the party chairman in the state has given him red card. However, he indicated that he is waiting for intervention, which he is expecting. And already the national chairman of the All Progressive Congress, Comrade Adams Oshiomhole, says that the governor has told him in writing and also one-on-one that he will not defect from the ruling party unless he is pushed out. So, something in the works.
All right, Bayo, let's return to the leadership newspaper. That's the second paper we are taking, by the way. The story on the flood havoc in Katsina is also there, immediately below the template. Our term story is also there. But the lead says, no going back on Executive Order 006, federal government declares. With two riders, says a state of emergency on corruption, insists directive meant to recover 595.4 billion naira, and urges National Assembly to seek judicial interpretation. That's on page 5. Very quickly, Bayo, the federal government, President Buhari did not say it's a state of emergency on corruption, because there are constitutionally mandated procedures for declaring a state of emergency. It says a national emergency on corruption. Now, another headline there, Dutch firm to build cattle ranches in Nigeria, that's page 6. Nigeria's economy to expand by 2.3% in 2019. That's according to the IMF. And the photograph you see there is that of the president being received by the Prime Minister of the Netherlands at The Hague yesterday. And then three other headlines there. President Buhari orders repatriation of Nigerians stranded in Russia. Ekiti victory, not national acceptance for APC. That's according to PDP, page 7. And Shippers Council targets 17 billion naira revenue from cargo tracking note.
All right, the Nigerian pilot, before Bayo comes in, and I'm particularly interested in that aspect of Nigerians that was stranded in Russia. There may be many reasons to that. Now, the Nigerian pilot, below the nameplate, 2.9 billion naira loot. Judge gets order to conclude O.J. Carlos' trial by September 12. Well, told you this flood kills 42 persons, destroys 200 houses in Katsina. It's on page 9. Now, defection, the main headline on the Nigerian pilot, defection. 4 riders, Governor Tom, Senator Nyako, Dogara's 8 others quit APC. Party gave me red card. I am now a free man, or Tom. I quit APC to pursue other cause of life, Dogara's aid. As Senator Nyako dumps APC for Obasanjo's ADC. Now below the photograph, Nigeria's safe, secure, Buhari tells Dutch company chief executive officers. And three below that, we have a number of headlines there. Ndibo must change the style in politics, says Okorocha, the governor of Imo State, is on page 7. Then Ohanes Afeni for South leaders denied landing permit in Abuja airport. Page 5 has this story. Now NJC settles 80% pension arrears of judicial officers. And on page 6 is the federal government calls for stronger legislative judiciary relationship. And finally, INEC election policy hostile to persons with disabilities. The story can be found on page 12 of the Nigerian Pilot. Abayo.
Yes, the executive order has been clarified by the Minister of Information, and he says it's in consonant with Section 5 of the 1999 Constitution, and also it is a part of the extension that extends the execution and maintenance of the Constitution and law made by the National Assembly, including but not limited to Section 15 sub 5 to abolish corrupt practices and abuse. And he says it is not the first time it has been done. In 1980, President Shehu Shagari issued executive order to modify Public Order Act. In fact, it was challenged by the government of Ogun and Borno State, and they failed. In 1999, President Obasanjo also issued executive order to abolish Petroleum Trust Fund and also to proclaim May 29 as Democracy Day. And recently, Vice President Professor Yemi Osinbajo, while acting as president, issues an executive order for the case of doing business, ease of doing business in Nigeria. And so the minister says that the executive order is nothing strange. However, the intention is to ensure that those who have acquired property bordering on corruption, so, to ensure that they do not preserve those assets and keep them away from being recovered. On the election, Governor Ayodele Fayose has eventually opened up. He has broken his silence. He says the mandate was stolen and he is going to take up the case in court. And hear him. He says that I am Peter Ayodele Fayose. As for me, I hold my head high. I can never be suppressed. I don't lose battles, and I will not lose this one. Meanwhile, Ekiti election has been won and lost on Saturday, but however, unfortunately, in Ondo State, there's been a clash between supporters of the All Progressive Congress and the PDP. They were jubilating over the election results, and it led to injuries and destructions of property. Talking about World Cup, Nigerian supporters who went to the World Cup have been stranded. The president has issued
some Nigerians.
Some Nigerians, yes. President has directed the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Aviation to ensure their evacuation. Meanwhile, Nigeria may have been out of the World Cup in the first round, but Nigeria is still in the World Cup race. The World Cup is to decide which is the best goal. And Ahmed Musa's goal, the second goal against Ireland, is one of the 17 goals that is in the race for the goal of the tournament. I had thought that goal he trapped and scored on a volley was outstanding. But they are considering the one he took up, latched on the pass, run, beat two defenders, added the goalkeeper, and also beat two other defenders in the goal to score Nigeria's second goal.
That was indeed a magnificent performance, you know, and it's a lone thing, you know. He took it upon himself. He's by instinct and moved, and he was able to make it get a goal.
That's right. That goal was scored in the first round, not in the second round, unfortunately. Yes, that's where we ended up. And the Nigerians, or some of the Nigerians who have been stranded in Russia, just before we come to the editorial, which is also on soccer, the DG of NAPTIP had warned ahead of the World Cup that there were some human traffickers who were most likely to take advantage of unsuspecting persons ahead of the World Cup. The DG, Julie Donnelly, gave that warning, and now we are hearing that hundreds have been stranded. How do you get stranded?
But the hundreds in question, are there people? Were they the fans of the Super Eagles, or how did they find their way into Russia? Otherwise, you should have a return ticket. You know,
well, the information there is that their return ticket has been cancelled by the airline. But
why would the airline cancel your return ticket?
It's quite strange. Yeah.
All right, Bayo, thanks a lot. Let's take today's editorial, which is also on football. It's from the New Telegraph, and it's on page 15. It says the unending crisis in Nigerian football. It has to do, of course, with the leadership tussle over who heads the NFF. Bayo.
Well, the editorial actually is looking at the history of Nigerian football, and it says that it has become a tradition. Before every World Cup or after every World Cup, we have something like this. It recalls about in 1998 when Abdulmumini Aminu had his own war. In 2010, it was Sani Lulu. In 2014, it was Aminu Megari, and now it is between Amaju Pinnick and Chris Giwa. The current situation is quite confusing. Chris Giwa had gone to court and has obtained a court ruling which the apex court, the court of the Supreme Court, has upheld, and therefore he has assumed his position at the Glass House as the president of the Nigerian Football Federation. However, FIFA considers third-party involvement in issues of running football as interference, and the president of FIFA has already indicated that Nigeria risks being banned from FIFA. Now here is the dilemma. The Nigerian Ministry of Sports had to direct that a court order of the nation has to be abided with. Now, how do you compromise between a court order of the apex court of the nation and the FIFA rule on international football organizing body?
There are regulations guarding international football, yes. And I think Kingsley is a lawyer here. If you know a regulation and you want to belong to an international organization, you need to abide by that. Well, perhaps I may be a novice in this one, but I believe that FIFA has always made this known to Nigeria and the rest of the world that these regulations must be abided by.
All right, well, Kira, that's soccer jurisprudence. If we start on it today, we won't end. Bayo would like to thank you. I mean, it's all soccer, including the Governor Tom of Benue, who says he's been given a red card. I mean, the danger in that is that if you get a red card, then you miss the next match. So is he missing the next election?
Using the football image.
All right, so that's a joke there. Bayo Atoyebe would like to thank you for being around with us today. We'll see you tomorrow. Okay, it's Good Morning Nigeria, still on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We'll take a short break. Now, when we return, we'll go straight on to our principal item for conversation.
Hate speech is not a joke. It incites genocide and crimes against humanity. Most of Africa's civil wars are caused by hate speech from one tribe against another. We don't want it here. The Nigerian government stands firm against hate speech.
Under no conditions whatsoever should we tolerate or excuse or justify hate speech or hateful conduct of any kind, especially where such is illegal.
There is no doubt that the resurgent push for separatism, as well as the rising cases of ethnic and religious disharmony, are all traceable to the growing phenomenon of hate speech.
One nation bound in freedom, peace and unity.
Nigeria, one nation, one people.
This is a public service announcement brought to you by NTA.
Your favorite Maggi star now wears a new look. Its great taste and quality still remain the same. With Maggi, every woman is a star.
Maggi!
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the daring and invincible Louis the Mosquito. Responsible for 200 malaria cases all on its own. Is there anything that can kill Louis? Morphine! Presenting Mortise Power Guard. Its powerful formula kills malaria mosquitoes fast. So, get Mortise Power Guard.
Brought us as usual.
As usual. You have no problem.
For the three people.
You are welcome, sir.
As usual, yeah?
You take that one. You take that one. You don't understand? We want Nigerian homegrown rice. Finish. You don't have.
Join the rice revolution today.
No other rice that tastes like Nigerian rice. Are you sorry? That's the Nigerian rice we are talking about. Chocolate made in Nigerian rice. Healthy food. I'm going to bring Mrs. Mobu to come to chocolate rice of made in Nigeria here. And see how it are made. Correct. And how they are cook it. Correct. Homegrown rice are good for your health. It boosts our economy and give employment to our people.
This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
The NTA Television College Jos admission forms for diploma program in film and television production, television engineering technology, broadcast journalism, and degree programs in mass communication, television journalism, and mass communication television production is now on sale. The sale of forms will commence 14th May and run to 13th August 2018 at the cost of 7,500 Naira only per form, payable through the remitter platform in favor of NTA Television College Jos. Forms can be obtained from all marketing offices in NTA State Capital Stations, Zonal Centers, Training Directorate of the NTA Headquarters Abuja, and the Office of the Academic Secretary of the NTA Television College. Applicants are required to possess 5 credits in GCE, SSCE in relevant areas of study, including English and Mathematics, in not more than 2 sittings. All completed forms attached with photocopies of credentials must be submitted on or before the 13th of August 2018 to the stations where the forms were obtained. For further inquiries, please contact the Office of the Academic Secretary on these numbers. Announcer, Registrar.
And let's start our conversation this morning on the President or Vice President of Shibajo's investment roadshow to the United States of America with this background report put together by Oyeyemi Ajayi.
Vice President Yemi Osinbajo's visit to the United States might have come and gone, but were the purpose and targets achieved? The Vice President's meeting with some global leaders in technology, innovation and entertainment industries was to clearly understand the progress the country is making in these sectors. It was also an opportunity to converse investments to Nigeria while intimating investors on government's efforts in the area of ease of doing business as well as open windows of opportunity for the youths in the area of technology and innovation. The Vice President addressed the chief executives of entertainment industries in Hollywood in Los Angeles, California. He also interacted with some global industry leaders in information technology at the Silicon Valley in San Francisco.
Committed to a partnership with investors and with the private sector to work through the various issues and the various problems. That really is the method. That really is the way that we intend to go about this.
While reiterating the determination of the Buhari administration towards ensuring Nigeria becomes a major player in these sectors. Among the anticipated gains of these visits is the hope to end piracy in Nigeria through technology. In his own way, the Vice President was able to review the progress and strides in the country's technology, innovation and creative space in faraway United States of America. But what more needs to be done for Nigeria to attain a pride of place in the ICT world? Can the gains of these visits sustain the nation's ICT and the creative sectors?
This is wonderful, bringing Hollywood, bringing Silicon Valley together with Nigerian entertainers and entrepreneurs, and having them in one room to rub minds and think of the way forward for Nigerian entertainment. It's very commendable. It's something that I'm really, really happy about.
I think this is saying that we need to take this sector seriously. Yes, that's what it's saying. That's the message. For the VP to say that he is coming out to Los Angeles, to Hollywood, to meet with the movers and shakers of our industry, it means it's time for show business.
I think that Africa's got a big future, and we're happy to have a meeting and discuss how incentives can take place to build the industry.
And Nigeria has a lot of potential. It's the world of creativity. It's about how do you bring it back to those audiences in a quicker way would really help. So huge potential. It's how do we get there?
It's also very important that we have reached out to the world to let them understand that Nigeria is ripe for investment.
All right, thank you very much for that background report. Now we have guests with us here at the studios, as well as another joining us via Skype to discuss this issue in further detail. At this time, we'd like to welcome Dr. Jumoke Oduwole, Senior Special Assistant to the President on Industry, Trade and Investment in the Office of the Vice President, and also Secretary to the Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council, PEBEC. Dr. Oduwole, pleasure to have you on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you.
Okay, and then also here with us in the studios is the Executive Secretary and the CEO of, Executive Director, I believe, and CEO of the Nigerian Export Promotion Council, Olusegun Awolowo. Mr. Awolowo, pleasure to have you with us on the program this morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
And let's also welcome the Director General, Nigerian Information Technology Development Agency, NITDA, Dr. Isa Ali Ibrahim Pantami. So we are glad to have you this morning on the show.
Thank you very much.
And also with us is the Executive Director, Nigerian Export Promotion Council, Mr. Shegu Awolowo. Okay, he has just been introduced, but it's good to inform that we have Olarinwaju Oshibona, SSA to the President on ICT. He's joining us via Skype all the way from Kigali. Gentlemen and lady, you're welcome to the program.
Well, I'm sure we can, if we can hear him via Skype, if we have the audio connection via Skype, that would just be great. That's Mr. Oshibona. Oshibona is the Senior Special Assistant to the President on ICT, and as my colleague Kirian indicated, is joining us via Skype. And last but not the least, right here with us in the studios is Ms. Yewande Sadiku, who is Executive Secretary and CEO of the Nigerian Investment Promotion Commission. Ladies and gentlemen, pleasure once again to have you join us on Good Morning Nigeria. Let's begin, with the SSA to the President on Industry, Trade and Investment in the Office of the Vice President. Give us a sense of what transpired during the Vice President's roadshow, shall we say, in the U.S.
We went to Silicon Valley to showcase Nigerian startups, to let the industry know that Nigeria is open for business, to listen to the challenges, to assure investors that we're ready to take on their concerns and address them. We had very good meetings. The delegation was led by the Vice President, which sent a very, very strong signal to Silicon Valley, and the response was really very good.
Well, when you say, okay, let me just jump on that. What are the specifics we're looking at? Perhaps we'll crunch those specifics in the course of the conversation.
Okay.
What were the cardinal issues that drove the visit to Silicon Valley?
We're trying to showcase Nigeria ecosystem. We want to develop our digital economy. We want to show that Nigeria is a knowledge economy. We have the manpower, we have the talent, we have the market size. We have everything it takes to be a global leader in technology. We met with several companies. We had 2 investor forums. We met with tech companies. And we were able to show that whether it's from growing our broadband, whether it's from making sure that our regulatory environment is conducive, that the government is willing to do all it takes to support our private sector. We also went there with a very strong delegation of Nigerian private sector. We met with Nigerians in the Valley, working in the Valley. The Vice President had interactions with them at LinkedIn, also to show them that Nigeria is open for business and available to them to invest in
the country. Okay. Now, I'm going to take you on this issue of technology in the course of this conversation, because you say Nigeria is ripe, technologically, to do technology-based business. We're going to discuss that because, of course, for a nation to be that ready technologically, some things have to be put in place. All right, now let's go to the to Yewande Sadiku, the Executive Secretary, Nigerian Investment Promotion Commission. Now, this is not the first time that the Nigerian government is embarking on this kind of roadshow. The previous administrations did the same. Now, is it becoming just synonymous with the business circle in Nigeria? Now, what in your mind is the intention? Of course, we have heard from her on the basic reasons why we are there. Now, how can we begin to actualize the real reason for always carrying out roadshows across the globe?
Roadshows are necessary. They're a necessary part of the investment promotion cycle. The first thing they do is signal. And investors invest first because they feel comfortable with the business environment. They must feel comfortable with the people. They must feel comfortable with, they must have a good feeling about the country before they dig further to get information, to get data. And everywhere in the world, especially in technology, the private sector leads the public sector. Many Nigerian entrepreneurs have secured funding from Silicon Valley because a lot of financiers of that sector in particular come from Silicon Valley. People tend to invest in what they're comfortable with. Because a lot of people in Silicon Valley made their money from technology, they're not afraid of technology like the person who made their money from finance, who is only more comfortable with finance. So it's important when Nigerian entrepreneurs have been engaging these investors for government to send a very, very strong signal of government support, for those investors, so that the investors know that the entrepreneurs are not working in isolation. They're not working against government policy, but instead they're working in line and promoting and leading, government policy. So I thought the roadshow was an important part, and I believe there will be the takeaways from such things. It's not a destination, it is a journey, and that was a big milestone in the journey of Nigeria's development and attracting more investments into its tech sector.
All right, thank you very much. Let's bring in now the DG of NITDA, that's the Information Technology Development Agency, Dr. Ibrahim Patami. From your perspective, what were the new vistas created by the roadshow?
Actually, I think a lot has been achieved through our roadshow. Firstly, this delegation has been led by the Vice President, Professor Yemi Oshimbajo, GCON, which is a clear indication that Nigeria means business. And secondly, after visiting them, we were able to have a very fruitful discussions with many potential investors. We showcased what the country has for them, the investment opportunities we have in Nigeria. And part of the things that I can consider as part of our gains, firstly, through our meetings like with Google, Facebook, and LinkedIn, we discussed extensively about how they can partner with the federal government of Nigeria through relevant agencies and build our capacity, technology transfer, digital job creation, and many more. We asked them critical questions about our policy, where they feel we need to revisit it or to review it where the case arises. So they indicated very few observations, and the federal government is willing to address these areas. So for sure a lot has been achieved because they indicated their interest to partner with us, particularly in the area of capacity building, investment, technology transfer, digital job creation, and many more. So these are the few things I believe that we are about to achieve.
All right, remaining with you, Pantami, technology transfer, which you mentioned, has over the years been proved to be so difficult for growing nations to achieve. The Asian tigers who did that did not rely on technology transfer, but of course, we say if you cannot do it yourself locally or indigenously, you steal it. And then you also talk about investment in technology, and you are a technological-based man. In Nigeria, are we set technologically in all departments of technology to, of course, welcome the hybrid technology-based silicon community?
I think we are ready for that. Firstly, I may disagree with you with your first statement indicating the issue of technology transfer. Firstly, Nigeria is ready for technology transfer, because most of us are very much addicted to ICT. This is a population of around 190 million people approximately, and around 70% of this population are within that youthful age bracket. They are addicted to ICT. I always give simple examples. In Nigeria, usually when we go to sleep, the last thing we always do is to take our tablet or iPad and go through our messages. When we wake up in the morning, the first thing we do is to take our tab or iPhone or iPad, go through our messages, use our applications, and many more. To the extent that usually today, iPhone or rather mobile phones and tablets even displayed maybe our wristwatch. It also displays our calculator and many more. Why? Because they are all in one. So this is an indication that the country is so much inclined to technology. Secondly, we have been participating in many fora and exhibitions, and Nigerians always emerge among the best. For example, in 2016, we were in Gulf Information Technology Exhibition, where over 140 countries came with their innovation. With all sense of fairness and humility, Nigeria emerged as the second best country globally. A year later, we also went to the same Gulf Information Technology Exhibition. 2 Nigerians emerged among the best globally. So there are many examples like this, and we have been doing excellently well. For example, look at even the software we are using today in Nigeria, TSA, Treasury Single Account, IPPIS. Most of these software are developed by Nigerians, and we have been using them effectively to the extent that one of them is saving almost 20 billion naira monthly for the federal government. So this is an indication that the country is ready for investment, go for technology transfer. And we have been doing well. We need only little support to continue to develop. And that is how other countries started. Go to India, for example, like Bangalore. That is how they started the way we are doing it now. So I think this is a clear indication that the country is ready for technology transfer. And most of the challenges we are having are not that serious. Sometimes we only need state funding, sometimes supervision in what we have been developing. If you go to Lagos, if you go to Kaduna, and few other places, we have world-class IT hubs where our youth are being trained day in, day out on ICT and entrepreneurship. So because of this, the issue is not at all about whether we have the capacity or not. The capacity is there. What the capacity requires is that mentoring, support, supervision, and to patronize where necessary.
And the capacity was amplified during the last Technology Expo in Nigeria. It's not just in ICT, and other aspects of technology. But the problem is that after the exhibitions and all of that, it stops. We will return to that. Maybe Kinsley has...
All right, yeah. Just before we bring in Mr. Segun Awolowo, while we are still on ICT, let's join our guest, Mr. Olarinwaju Oshibona, who is joining us via Skype, as we indicated earlier, from Kigali. He's Senior Special Assistant to the President on ICT. Give us a sense of your takeaways from the various interactions that you had at Silicon Valley.
All right, thank you very much. Good morning. I think what we need to understand, technology and a creative industry has been a part of the quarterly business forum that is chaired by His Excellency the President. And ever since this administration came into government, what that message is that is the and deliberate approach to focusing on the opportunities that technology offers. So the journey to Silicon Valley is a progression of all the hard work and effort done engaging the private sector. And why are we doing this? What's upon us today is this fourth industrial revolution. It's all about digital, it's all about data, it's all about skills. So as part of showcasing our seriousness, we've gone to Silicon Valley with the highest member of government to show the seriousness we know in terms of regulatory. We want to be more around development. We want to be a knowledge hub for the tech industry. The beauty that we have actually missed is Nigerians are actually a high brand, sort of brand in the US and Europe. Now we as a government must adopt that and drive it well, support. If you look at the number of developers doing freelance on the freelance market, it's still small, but has capacity to grow. If you look at what we're doing in terms of capacity development, opportunity to grow jobs for the huge number of young people that we have, it's going to have to be around technology. Now, what must we do as a government? We're building what is going to be the largest digital identity system in Africa, and second to only the NITDA, that will provide ID for all Nigerians. And what that provides is massive data for innovation. That provides data for the fintechs. That provides massive data for be able to do forecasting and analytics. Again, what we're also doing as part of the conversation with the likes of LinkedIn is to see how do we understand the skills gaps that exist, the technology skills gaps that exist today. As we drive entrepreneurship, we also want to drive capacity development in terms of skills availability. Because to have a robust entrepreneurship, you need to have this. Also, we want to have a skill services back to the Western world. And that is a massive revenue opportunity for the country. You have snippets of this playing out if you know about a company called Andela. Andela today has, I believe, about 400 developers. They're looking to grow to about 2,000 developers, eventually grow to 10,000 developers. We need to have a multiplier effect. So the beauty of this trip is we've taken literally everyone that has a role to play from an investment perspective, from a technology perspective, to Silicon Valley, to the heart of the tech sector or the tech industry, to say Nigeria, with the sheer size of our continent and the skills that exist in our continent, want to be a big player.
All right, Mr. Shibona, thanks a lot. We'll come back to you. The audio there is giving us some challenge. Some of your words we can't immediately get to hear. But we'll come back to you once our engineers sort that out. But let's return to our guest here with us in the studios. I put Mr. Segun Awolowo on notice a while ago before we went over to Kigali via Skype. Mr. Segun Awolowo, you are a veteran of various road shows. What made this one different?
Veteran of road shows. Well, as Yewande has pointed out, you can't have enough of this. Really, you must always sell your country. Why was I particularly excited about it is that, you see, the creative industries, they just energize, they give the whole people a buzz about it. And that is where we really need to be strong players. Look, when I'm running around with my zero oil plan, what Nigeria must do to replace oil. And when you look at the IT section of it, it's a $1 trillion section, and there is no reason why we cannot be there. We're running around for cocoa, cashew, and other things, and yet a few people sit down and they do a movie, Black Panther, with $100 million, and they generate $1 billion. So that just goes to show where the money really is. So we're looking at for foreign exchange earnings from many of these players, and the ones that hold the most valuable proposition for us is, of course, the IT sector, the creative industry. These are our young people, doing things, and changing the whole platform. And we have to get in there. And what the Vice President was really saying, look, with the regulators as well, we must know what we should be ready for. You see, the next technology-driven revolution, if we're not careful, we're going to be outside it. You want to be inside it. And there's so many Nigerians, from Google, the young lady taking us around who was a Nigerian. Many Nigerians working there, doing high-skilled things. We went to LinkedIn, the same story. And the fire chat the vice president had that was streamed. You know, the LinkedIn co-founder was telling us about how many millions of Nigerians are there. We're also looking at, for example, let me tell you how technology really, you have to be at the breast of it. Yeah, we have been in the ministry working on what we call our skills gap survey by UNIDO. And the head of LinkedIn, the co-founder, was giving us a platform based on LinkedIn that can solve all that. What we have been doing, we haven't even completed it for 4 or 5 years with UNIDO. And this is, LinkedIn that can help you study because of the professionals that register on board of it. So it's a very energizing thing. I think they were really glad to have the vice president there talking to them. Most importantly, we were there to support our film industry, many people working in that sector. And that support is also necessary because the vice president was demonstrating to them that, look, this government, the Nigerian government, is in support of many of our players. You have Muad Abudu that went with us. She's signing deals with Sony. Oh, this is not a government deal. It's private sector. But she's going to create jobs. And Sony executives were telling us, look, and the vice president telling them, why don't you have a studio in Nigeria? So they might come and have a studio and challenge you, and make a claim for that, your 30 million viewers that NTA claims.
I'm sorry, Mr. Shegun Awolowo. It looks like you are very well behind the news. You're talking about 30 million. NTA was talking about 35 million viewers in 1985. And here we are. This is 2018. I'm also an old man, but I mean quite clearly. Your point is noted. NTA remains Africa's largest television network, and we're growing, by leaps and bounds, and we're quite happy with what we're doing. But of course, we could make do with advantages or benefits deriving from some of the items that you have just ticked off with regard to the road show. But I would like to, earlier we're talking about Silicon Valley, and now you have bridged Silicon Valley to Hollywood, which is in Los Angeles. But what was the reception like? Because Hollywood, Bollywood, and then Nollywood. From the interactions that you had with the various persons or the various organizations you met in Hollywood, is there a recognition that there exists, for instance, in Nollywood?
Oh yes. Yes. They really recognize that, and the figures are there to show you we're the largest growing film industry. Well, but you see, we are looking at how to tap into the international sector where the real money is, where the dollars are, and that is where we need to support many of these our artists, filmmakers, producers, and there are thousands of them. You just have to look some of these movies that you watch. When you read the at the end of the movie the credits, and you start seeing Nigerian names. These are real Nigerians working in those industries. So, like my brother, the DJ of NITDA, said, look, this is the same thing India did. All your people, they go abroad. They're working. Some are born in America, and they start working there. They get all these creative skills and arts, and then they transform it back. Bring it back into the country and re-energize the country with that kind of creativity. And that is what is going to happen, and that is what is happening with Nigeria. Now, what government has to do, because government is not a player in that field, what government has to do is to get the business regulations right and look forward and get it right for them so they are able to thrive. And that's what Dr. Jumoke Oduwole will also emphasize about this. In the meeting, first in the Silicon Valley, you had about 30 serious players, top players in those. I mean, I sat next to a young man who was telling me about how he invested in one thing and he made $1 billion overnight. And I looked at the man and I was like, oh my God. Look at this young boy, that is talking about $1 billion just like that. That is the creativity that this industry brings. So the vice president was able to have a closed-door meeting with them, and we spoke about all the regulations. What do they need? Why are you not in Nigeria? Why, you should be here before. We have the innovative hubs where discovering and creating. Many state governments now are building innovative hubs, for the young people to come and demonstrate and in the trip we took about 10 that we've been showcasing all over the country. You remember there was the Aso Rock Demo Day where young creative innovators came to make their pitches. So that's also good. We took about 10 of them, but that's private because the investment they get is for them. But let me just land on that look, then taking from that and coming to Nollywood and seeing the real, players in the studios that are looking at Nigeria. And they're telling us, look, you have to get many things in place. For a movie to come and, for us to come and shoot a movie in your country, that's another industry. Folari Koka was also with us, the DG of Culture and Tourism. That, look, you must create that enabling environment that lets them come, because it's jobs. You have people doing studio work, you have drivers, you have food, you have so many things that you can generate from this. So it was very exciting.
Mr. Shegwawolo,
yes.
Thank you for your submissions. And I'll agree with you to a large extent the fact that Nigerians are making waves in Nollywood. Chuatale Jofo is from my community. Of course, he's an international star in Hollywood. Now, let me take you back to the issue of technology as it concerns this conversation. Of course, you know that the establishment of free trade zones in any country, of course, is critical part of investment strategy of any nation. But I'm aware that some of the selected free trade zones in the country, most of them are still under construction. And when we're talking about getting ready, prepared for people to invest in Nigeria, that is what we're talking about. We need to have a base here. Now, what's happening to that aspect? Because most of them that are technology-based are still under construction. These are bases where, of course, the people who are trying to go into Nigeria to come and do business will rely on. It's all part of ease of doing business.
Well, the way we look at it is just a method to fast-track development and investment and industry, really. And because you cannot, the economy will not allow us to develop everything now that we want to do. So we say, okay, let's go the Chinese model. Let's create special, we're calling them economic zones now. Special economic zones that are powered. You have electricity there on 24/7. You have water supply. You have good infrastructure. Then people can come and invest and build there. Build studios there. An example is what the government tried to do with TNAPA. So those things must happen, because we cannot build everything we want to build. So the government is working on that. We're creating these special economic zones that can drive investment. I'm sure Mrs. Sadiku will enlighten you further about that and the levels of investment that we're generating in there. And we conducted the ARGP focus labs, and that was very interesting because you are able to look at investments of, I think it was about $28 billion that will come into the country through those focus labs. And all this was also a pitch that the Vice President made to particularly the Silicon Valley investors. So we're looking to track some of those and bring them back to Nigeria for us to grow.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Segun Awolowo. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're taking a short break now. When we return, we'll continue with aspects of the conversation, including, of course, taking the tweets that have come in. You can also send in your tweets. You can see the handle at the bottom left-hand corner of the screen at NTA GMN.
broadcast sector is evolving. Operators, including cameramen and photographers, require new skills and techniques to churn out world-class productions. A unique opportunity is open to all. NTA TV College Jos is organizing a 4-week intensive short course in camera operation techniques aimed at enhancing the professional skills of cameramen and photographers, practicing and freshers. Date 16th July to 10th August 2018. Another 4-week intensive short course in photojournalism and photography holds 13th August to 7th September 2018. Venue for both courses is the TV College premises, NTA TV College, Rayfield, Jos. Fee 100,000 naira per participant. Accommodation inclusive. For more inquiries, contact us on 0806 980 9807 and 0703 660 7155. TV College, Jos. Training you to be the best you want to be.
Nigerians. Suicide bombers are not spirits. They are not ghosts. They are human beings like you and me. They live amongst us. They are your neighbors. They are your friends today, but terrorists tomorrow. So you must know your neighbor now. Security begins with you and me. Know your neighbor. Be vigilant. Be security conscious. Report suspicious persons, objects, and movements to the police and other security agencies. The security of our nation is a duty for you and me.
If you see something, say something. Nigeria unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Can I see your particulars, sir?
Officer, my particulars no dey here.
In that case, you'll have to come with me to the police station.
Officer, which levels? Where I for find you something make you take arrange your weekend.
What? Offense number 1, driving without particulars. Offense number 2, trying to bribe an officer of the law.
I won't harass Nigerians or take bribe. Change begins with me.
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
We thank you for staying with us up to this moment on Good Morning Nigeria. We still have our guests here in the studio, and of course, Olaruwaju at the Kigali end, who's been coming to us via Skype. Olaruwaju, we just hope that your audio line is clear enough now for you to reach us again. First of all, I'd like you to go back to what you were trying to explain to us shortly before we cut it off as a result of audio challenges. But to add to that, I'll read this to you, that Nigeria has been listed at top of the countries where latest generation of internet users is expected to emanate from. Now, what does this hold for the nation's economy? That's an additional question to the one I Kingsley put to you earlier on. All right, we're in this story, we have been unable to really establish a history link between Kigali and Abuja, the capital of Nigeria. Here, we would like to thank you for your time and, of course, sharing your thoughts, the ones we could hear when you were earlier on put on the line. Thank you very much indeed for reaching us via Skype from Kigali. And now back to the studio here, and let's look at what Nigerians are saying with respect to this conversation. We have some tweets here with us this morning. These are Nigerians who are also making contributions to this conversation. Now, Festus Kimboya says, the recent VP's investment roadshow in the U.S. is another drive to attract investment and should be applauded. But we must continue to improve ease of doing business, highlight the potential strength of our economy, and reduce the negative news that are coming out of Nigeria.
This is from Dele Abiodun. It says, good trip, I perceive, but just like showing What might come out of it will not happen immediately, but surely after planting and watering comes great harvests. The investment will still start coming in with added government commitment.
All right, now from Osino, we must first of all do our homework by solving our epileptic power supply and the security issues in Nigeria. Otherwise, foreign investors will not invest in Nigeria, especially in technology.
All right, Tamagbalahon tweets, no matter how efficacious or productive such a visit is, if we still have to grapple with decayed infrastructure, particularly in the power sector, we'll continue to go back and forth. There's an improvement compared to the recent past, though, but more needs to be done to attract investors. So those are the tweets that we have in the meantime that we want to take. But let's return to our guest, Dr. Jumoke Oduwole. I would like you to make this linkage between ease of doing business, concerns, if any, expressed by those with whom the team interacted at Silicon Valley and elsewhere, for instance, and how the prospects look like, going forward on account of what they had and what you also had.
Thank you very much. And I'd like to thank Festus Dele, all the people that sent in tweets. It's encouraging to know that Nigerians are following this intervention very closely. Now, the only thing I would disagree with is whether it's the chicken or the egg. Do we wait to get everything right before we start moving and attracting investors? The roadshow we went on is one that countries go on regularly. India, Malaysia, all sorts of countries go to Silicon Valley regularly to make this pitch. Now we have the talent, we have the population, we have the market, we have the fundamentals that are very strong. Yes, we need more broadband so that, because everything technology rides on the infrastructure. Yes, we need to make some tweaks in our regulatory environment. But those are things that are ongoing. As you know, we've had the Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council for 24 months now. We were able to showcase to the private sector in Silicon Valley and just Nigerians as a whole in the diaspora what the administration has been doing. We're able to show through NIPC the things we have in place, like pioneer status, like research and development, tax holidays, like rural development tax holidays. We have a number of initiatives. NITDA spoke about a lot of oncoming regulations and workshops and policies to encourage this space. So it was a very strong delegation. And I must say that the private sector were encouraged. They felt the support from the Nigerian government. We showcased a lot of technology companies from Nigeria are global. We've mentioned Andela, there's Flutterwave, there's Iroko, there's startups we took like Piggy Bank. These are companies, even startups in the last 12 to 18 months, that have gotten global attention. They've gotten funding. Y Combinator has invested in 15 Nigerian startups, and their latest cohort has 3 Nigerian startups. This is money that we don't even want Nigerian domestic investors to miss out, because these companies will eventually be American companies if their core investors are American. So we're even speaking to Nigerian domestic investors that, look, let's not miss this train. Everything doesn't have to be perfect before you jump in. It's when the risks are highest that the returns are highest. So this is an area that is vibrant. This is an area that is growing. The rest of the world can see what is happening here, can see the innovation, just the talent, the shared talent that Nigerians can manufacture from whatever situation we find ourselves. And really, really, truly the best is yet to come. What we're trying to put in place is the infrastructure and the regulatory environment. And that's what the Ease of Doing Business initiative is working on. The commitment is there. The political will is there. The coordination, all the agencies that needed to be on the trip were there. The Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, NIPC, NEPC, NITDA, all the special assistants from the presidency on ICT, everybody that needed to be there to showcase that confidence and to listen, because we were also there to listen. And we came back with specific things that companies said. We had good discussions with Google. We had good discussions with Facebook. We had good discussions at LinkedIn. We listened to the people that attended our sessions. And really what we've committed to doing is working line by line on what the support that is needed to have an enabling environment for this particular sector to thrive. And that's what we've committed to do, and we are doing.
You listened,
yes,
exactly, and that means that somebody or some people have been talking to you. With respect to the level of infrastructure development in the country, what has been their reaction to that? Because invariably, if they have to invest in this country, certain things must be in place. We cannot be starting up all the time. There should be a time when we can say, look, we are stabilized in this sector. So what have they been saying?
Look, in the last couple of years, Nigeria, 3 years to be precise, from 6% broadband penetration, we're at 22%. We have 60% mobile penetration. This is not a market to be ignored. As the DG of NITDA said, our population is very, very extremely digitally conscious and aware and play in that space. So while investors know that not everything is perfect, and that's not unique to Nigeria, it's not unique to even Africa. I mean, we talk about electricity, we talk about different things that do not hamper committed investors because they know where the returns are. So while we work on, and you know that we've been working on these issues that did not start in one day, and this administration has been committed to that in the last 3 years, day by day, full commitment. And these issues, yeah, please.
I'd like to add to Dr. J's comments. You know, when you look at technology infrastructure gaps, like you mentioned, when you look at infrastructure in particular, many people who are not aware think of them only as challenges. The beauty of technology is that by nature, when it transforms, it is disruptive. It doesn't look at the old model. It looks at a new way of fixing problems that exist. It is actually because Nigeria has these gaps that it is such an attractive market. So instead of fixing things the old way, technology can use innovative new ways of resolving things. So many people are aware of the cab sharing service. But because we don't have trucks, the number that we need for logistic reasons, somebody has actually created a business around that opportunity. So they didn't complain about roads, they didn't complain about power. You know, their focus was more on what government needs to do in terms of government policies and the like to support the development, what government needs to do in terms of education to ensure that there's the talent pool, you know, that feeds into this industry exists. But there were no complaints about road and power because they're looking at new innovative ways of getting around the power challenge, of getting around the infrastructure.
All right, still with you, Ms. Sadiku. To tell us something. I've not heard the profile of other persons who went. Most of the names I've heard, including your good selves, from federal government. How then can the takeaways from this roadshow be cascaded to the subnational governments?
The takeaways from the roadshow is not with government, it's not with federal, it's not with state. The takeaway from the roadshow is with the entrepreneurs, wherever they may be across Nigeria, who will take these opportunities and run with them. There was a young lady who made a presentation to the group of tech investors who came from the Northeast, even though it was a federal initiative. There were techpreneurs, I would call them, rather than entrepreneurs. There were techpreneurs from across Nigeria. So the federal government only provided a platform. You know, if you hear that the vice president of Nigeria is coming on a roadshow, the level of engagement and access that you have to senior officials is different from when the entrepreneurs are going alone. So entrepreneurs across Nigeria, you know, rode on the back of that. We were not even promoting federal government wants to do this, federal government wants to do that. We were promoting Nigeria is ripe and ready for this. Government is fully supportive of these techpreneurs. We then gave the techpreneurs an opportunity to present themselves. But we were not presenting, you know, it was not based on region or sector. It was all the way across
Well, that explanation is fine. I'm asking that question against the background of what the PEBEC has been doing. That's the Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council has been doing. And we do know some of the challenges that startups face. at the subnational level. All kinds of taxes and the lack of mental appreciation by the subnational governments as to what these entities are all about. That's why I'm asking the question, how will you then cascade this down? Shegun Awolowo, I'm sure would like to take this up, so that the state governments can have a buy-in in terms of also helping to accelerate whatever gains there might be. Mr. Awolowo, please.
Yeah, well, I think that is very interesting. You mentioned that. But what PEBEC is actually doing is also working with the states. And right now, the states are even competing amongst themselves to be a better place to do business in. And also in innovation, many states are coming up with it. We go around with the vice president on this tour on MSMEs. And it takes the whole federal government regulators and businesses, and we take them to meet the entrepreneurs. We're looking at the SMEs, the MSMEs, and they come with their challenges with NAFDAC, with getting an export permit from NEPC, with getting standards from SON. So it takes them all over the country, and we see the states, what they're doing, how they're responding. Now, many states are also setting innovation hubs for this. The DG NITDA is going to tell you more about the companies selected and that made a pitch to the Silicon Valley officials. What they wanted to listen to was, what is government doing? Dr. Jumoke, Dr. J as I call her, she was just being modest. What the PEBEC has done is have been able to move us 20 places off on the rank in the 24. Yeah, in the rank of in the ease of doing business, and they're looking again at how to improve on that. But then they're not working alone; they're working with Lagos State, with Kano State, with other states in getting all this. So, like you rightly said, this is not only about the federal government. You know, it has to cascade all the way down. But the beauty about the creative industry, like I tell you, is that you see the energy they generate. It's just mind-boggling. And you look, when they were talking to us, that one of the most streamed songs was one dance with Drake and Wizkid that got 875 million streams. So the whole of Nollywood, the whole of Silicon Valley, they are looking at you like, oh wow, this country, there's a big value proposition in this country. How do we tap in? We're not going to wait for the road, Lagos-Ibadan Express Road, to be done before we come in. It's been done. People are doing business anyway. We're not going to wait for the electricity to be completely fixed. Because when you look at somebody like Aliko Dangote will tell you he moved his business at when our power was 2,000 megawatts. It became the biggest cement. He's now exporting cement from Nigeria now. So who is waiting? It's maybe other industries that are going to wait. But you see, the creative, the technology sector, they don't wait. They jump on opportunities and they take it. And what the whole trip was all about was to let these people know that, look, government is aware. We're giving you tax holidays. NIPC made a pitch about all the tax breaks. We're not doing double taxation on many of these things. You come and then you get 100% repatriation of your funds when you bring it to Nigeria.
All right, Mr. Shegun Awolowo, thank you so much for your postulations this morning. It's been very interesting. Mr. Shegun Awolowo is actually the executive director, yes, of Nigerian Export Promotion Council. Thank you very much indeed for your time. All right, we hope to have you another day. Now, let's return to the DG of NITDA, talking about infrastructure and the Silicon Valley movement and all of that, all center around ICT. And what propels ICT, if I understand that quite well, is communication satellite. That is what propels it. And Nigeria happens to have one communication satellite in the orbit. And from records available to me and some of us who are interested in a technology reportage, is that not up to 70% of that infrastructure is being utilized in the country. And we rely perhaps on other foreign satellites, who are just beaming their signals to Nigeria, while we have a satellite that is footed on Africa. Now, how would you utilize that infrastructure? Given the fact that, Nigeria is hopeful that we're going to have a boom in ICT.
So thank you very much for asking this question. I think we still have effort in the pipeline on trying to increase the number of our satellites. Particularly, we do hope that maybe end of this year, beginning of next year, most probably, we will get another one from China. The discussion is in the pipeline with the Ministry of Communications through NITCOMSAT, Nigerian Communication Satellite. I do hope that within no time, that issue will be addressed. And secondly, as my colleague said, ED of Nigeria Investment Forum, that is also the ES of Nigerian Export Promotion Council, and that of Nigeria Investment Forum, and the SSA to the President, Dr. Jumuke. We are not talking that we have no challenges in Nigeria. Each and every country you visit, they have their own challenges. These challenges will not in any way make you to sit down without making any effort to at least look for investors. Sometimes the challenges motivate you to mobilize investors to come to your country, because the investors are not after a country that is fixed 100%. They just want to see that there are opportunities. You have some challenges that they will come on and leverage on these challenges and get a win-win situation. That is what they are after. Throughout our discussions with all of them, from the meeting we have with 33 major investors, being led by the Vice President himself, and the discussion we also have with around 66 investors again. None of them mentioned the issue of just satellite or roads or power. That was not the even topic of discussion. Most of them knew our challenges. However, they focus more on our policies. Are they friendly or not? All their observations are toward that. Why? Because investors are after countries where there are some challenges, so that they can come and join hands with them, leverage on that, and provide solutions. And that is what investment is all about. When a country is 99% fixed, then by implication, investors will not be interested in going there. They are more interested in countries where you have policies that are encouraging, that are friendly, so that whenever they come, they work with you, with at least your private sector, and see how they leverage on that and provide solution to all the challenges. So because of this, the actual discussion we address with them is more related to our policies. And as the regulatory agency in ICT, that is NITDA, we came up with new policies recently, and we are working on them in collaboration with other stakeholders. For example, we are in the process of completing our cloud policy. With cloud policy, most of the issues we are discussing of localization and many more will be addressed. We are working on government interoperability framework. It will soon be completed. We are still working on intellectual property right, particularly in ICT. This will be ready hopefully by the end of this year. We are still working on so many issues related to ICT security, like ISO. So because of this, we have many policies in place. And all of these policies are not in any way discouraging, but rather encouraging and mobilizing investors to come to your country. Because usually we have this perception in Nigeria. If we talk of regulatory agencies, we feel like they are the agencies that are frustrating or jeopardizing our effort. The focus of this administration is not that. We are trying to make regulators to be more friendly. That is why investors are always, and other stakeholders are always being contacted in the process of coming up with policies.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry, Dr. Patame. Let's break this down. The ICT, we've been talking generally about ICT, and some of the items you've also touched on, so that we would know. This is not a typical Nigerian predilection for quick fixes. But you know, along the ICT value chain, there's the hardware, there's the software, there's the security, and then there is also the IP issue, that is intellectual property issue. Where along this value chain or in these sub-segments of ICT is Nigeria likely to hedge much better with attracting investors, say, from Silicon Valley? Software, hardware, security, and IP.
I think in all of them we can do that, particularly in the area of hardware. Most of the hardware we have been using in Nigeria, including that of our local content, usually are being imported. And the actual destination, or rather the country that has been importing this to Nigeria, is usually China. We need to leverage on this and invite many more to come to Nigeria and invest. In the area of our software, we also need investment. However, we have been doing excellently well in software than hardware. Particularly, as I gave some examples in my first comment, with that of TSA, IPPIS, and many more. If you look at this area, you will realize that we have the potentials of not only serving Nigeria, but the entire Africa itself. I believe that if our young innovators and software developers are supported the way they are supposed to be supported, for sure we can even serve the entire continent, not only Nigeria.
Let's serve ourselves first.
Yeah. So sorry?
So let's serve ourselves first.
No, we started serving ourselves. I think we started serving ourselves. Firstly, look at the software we have been developing. Secondly, we come up with another model. We encourage our software developers to come up with any solution to our challenges in governance, whether in ministry or in any department or in any agency. We try to encourage the relevant ministry or agency to patronize what we have developed locally. So you can sit down here, what are the challenges we have here in NTA? What are the things we are doing manually that we can automate? As long as we can come up with a solution, we try to see, we link you up with NTA to provide that solution for them. If there is any solution in the Ministry of Health, go and think over it. Come up with a solution. We link you up with the ministry so that they can patronize the solution. So now we are not only waiting for you to even do, so that we ask others to patronize. We encourage you to think of this problem, come up with the solution, and we link you up and we give you all the necessary support to do that.
That's right. Thanks a lot. Which leads me back to Ms. Yewande Sadiku. How can we, therefore, generate the kind of critical mass that is necessary to ensure that, everywhere you have, everybody paying attention to tech and what it can do for the economy?
That's why this roadshow was necessary. The followership of the Vice President is different from the followership of any regulatory agency head, and is different from the followership of any techpreneur. The fact that the Vice President, busy as he is, dedicated his time to this, is itself the reason we are seated here, at NTA, because he took his time to do that. And the first message that investors get is a signal they see from government. They listen less to what government says and more to what government is doing. The fact that the Vice President dedicated his time and, with the support of all these government agencies, demonstrates government seriousness. The work that is then required is for government to work with the private sector. And for this sector, the private sector must lead. That's the reality. What government simply does is to provide support and make sure that the environment, the business environment, is conducive, that the necessary regulations are in place.
I'd like to give a question to Dr. Jumoke Oduole as the Special Assistant to the President. See, let me take something from Dr. Pantami's submission, where he talked about making Nigerians to patronize what is produced locally. And that also borders on policy. When I raised the issue of a communication satellite, of course we know that government establishments, many are not patronizing NASHCOMSAT, for instance, because after all said and done, the man or the investor that you are willing to come into Nigeria perhaps may not have picked you up on the issue of challenges. But when he gets here, when the reality stares on his face, then he will be able to answer such questions. And of course, you know what I could do. So in terms of policy, do you think that we have enough pungent policies, you know, that could sustain this drive that you are backing on at the moment?
First of all, investors are extremely aware. Before they put their money anywhere, they do a lot of due diligence. So we went there fully updated on what was priority, uppermost on their mind. We talked about the infrastructure challenges, and we talked about the regulatory challenges. That's what the DG of NITDA was explaining to you. Now, perhaps I should give a bit of exposure to the Nigerian tech sector to help everybody understand that the sector itself is simply amazing. It's one of the highlights of the Nigerian economy. Already at 9%, growing extremely strongly. Services is already over 50% of our GDP. Now, every challenge in Nigeria today is a tech opportunity, whether it's from education, health, agribusiness, services, everything. Let me give you another example. So Yerande spoke about the Uber for trucks, the startup that pitched that's having trucks available. And this is a West African business, so there's foreign exchange component. Another startup that pitched was a young man who is going to have an app for buying of original spare parts. Now that is a problem that a lot of Nigerians encounter. Right. Now from your office or your bedroom, you can purchase spare parts and you can be sure it's genuine. You can have it delivered. So these are the kinds of opportunities, whether it's health, there are people doing that for drugs. The momentum, fintech has gone far. Now we're trying to catch up with our regulation and make sure that they're okay. These are services that are really exponential in their nature. So that is where the opportunity is. As the ES was saying, technology is leading government. But what is different now is that we're 110% supporting them. Whether it's coming up with regulation for Bitcoin, for cryptocurrencies, whether it's for fintech, for all sorts of financial services, insurance services, using mobile telephony technologies, buying of spare parts, getting of medicines, whatever it is that people see as challenges and problems, and young Nigerians exploring their innovation and creativity and their talent to work on agribusiness, to work on e-commerce, to work on so many sectors. This is exactly where we're going to create jobs, where we're going to have value. It's a global business. It's not localized to one country. And we just have to support it. So the Vice President knows that this is the way to go, has dedicated his time. The whole country is committed. You raised a point on subnational. The National Economic Council has approved a PEBEC model being cascaded down. So we all work on these regulatory challenges together. So when you talk about multiplicity of taxes, when you talk about right of way, the NEC is working very hard to make sure that as you're laying broadband across state lines, the policies are now being regulated so you don't have a spike in Lagos and then it's free in Kaduna. So this is to show you that the government, state, federal, local, are committed to supporting the tech space. Lagos State has been doing a lot in supporting that. And really also the National Assembly, the judiciary, the Ease of Doing Business initiative is one that cuts across all government lines.
Very quickly, that's Dr. Jumoke Oduwole. Where does the financial establishment, local financial establishment, stand in all of this? Because even as a startup, before you attract foreign investment, you need some measure of financing. And we know how challenging financing can be?
I'm glad you raised that question, because that is one thing that we haven't talked about. On this delegation was the MD of the Bank of Industry. When Bank of Industry has just raised a huge amount of capital for this space, the Bank of Industry is doing matching funds because foreign investors want to see what domestic investors are doing and the applicability of raising capital domestically. So that was one of the strongest bits. We actually had a full presentation and representing not just the Bank of Industry, the entire financial sector in Nigeria. The appetite for tech is there. The appetite for creatives is there. There's special funds. NEPC also doing a lot in the creative space, tech funds. We are really committed in actualizing and supporting these businesses. Access to credit is key. A lot of these businesses are SMEs, and so a lot of the interventions that we put forward are actually to support SMEs, and that's a really good question because very important, the financial element.
Thank you. Thank you.
Very important, as she said. We had a presentation there purposely to explain to them what government has in place to support the startups. Even at the National Information Technology Development Agency, we established a subsidiary named as Office for ICT Innovation Entrepreneurship. That office focuses more on supporting startups. We provide seed funding for them. It could not be sufficient, but it will go a long way.
Dr. Pantami, time is no longer on our side for now, but I think before we really round off this conversation, we have tweets here that we could.
That's right. Kieran, I think we are pressed for time.
Yeah,
As you can
exactly.
see, we need to take our complimentary segments, which we introduced.
All right.
We'd like to thank the contributors who've sent in: Sandy Michael Omako, J. Dole, Jack Solomon, Cecilia Kuroma, as well as Rashid Balume. Thanks a lot. Your sentiments and the comments that you have expressed are noted. We shall pass them on to the guests who have been with us. We'd like to appreciate the remainder of our guests, three of them: Dr. Jumoke Oduwole, Senior Special Assistant to the President on Trade and Industry, who also serves as Secretary to PEBEC, that's the Ease of Business Council. Dr. Oduwole, thanks a lot for being around.
Pleasure.
We also would like to appreciate Ms. Yewande Sadiku, Executive Secretary, Nigerian Investment Promotion Commission, NIPC. And last but not the least, appreciation to Director General of NITDA, that's the Nigeria Information Technology Development Agency, Dr. Isa Ali Ibrahim Patami. Thanks a lot for being around.
It's my pleasure, really.
All right, so that does it for us. Let's go very quickly to sports. France, conquerors of the world at Russia 2018. The team is back to Paris, and they've been received with open arms. And in boxing, Anthony Joshua has a date to defend his title.